Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Osceola Davis here at Lehman College, and we thank you for joining us for our first of two vocal masterclasses given by the Grammy Award winner, Jessica Rivera. Her accomplishments are absolutely too long to go through at this moment, but I will say she has performed with such outstanding international personality conductors as Simon Rattle, Gustavo Dudamel, and Esa Solomon. The students performing with her today have quite an opportunity, quite a privilege to work with them. So without further ado, I will turn this over to my colleague, Christopher Preston Thompson. Chris?
Thank you very much, Osceola. And I just have to say, on behalf of all of us here at Lehman College, we are so incredibly excited to have you with us, Jessica. So thank you for joining us. Now, without further ado, let's get to our first singer. Our first singer today is Holly Horan, and I am going to share my screen so we can all view her performance.
That was beautiful, Holly. That was wonderful. Hello, everyone. I am Jessica Rivera, and I am so delighted to be with you all today to work on your songs. And Holly, I have a couple of things that I wrote down, actually three things to work with you quickly on during this time. The first thing I just wanted to address is something that we all need to know when we are performing a piece, especially from an opera. So this is extremely general in nature, but since you're the first one and you did pick something that is from an opera, I thought we would start there because that's usually where I start when I'm learning something new and I think, okay, what is this from? Who wrote it? What period of music is it from? What's the context of the piece? Who is the character that I'm playing? When does this happen within the course of the opera? Because these answers to those questions give us a lot of information that we can use to create the character, to fill it out, our artistic interpretation, and things like that. So tell me a little bit about, in your own words, the context that you find yourself. What is the opera? Who wrote it? Who are you? What is the character that you're singing? Now, normally this is a duet. So this is the first time I've ever heard a solo version of it, which is fantastic. But give me a little bit more information. What do you know about this song?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Nice to meet you, by the way. So this aria is from the Tales of Hoffmann. I don't remember who wrote the opera, but the context is that the duet happens between the two women named Niklaus and Giulietta, and the story is that Hoffmann, the male lead, he's struggling with his different forms of love, one in which includes a mechanical doll that he had like fallen in love with and had a whole situation with in the first act. And Niklaus, one of the women, she was trying to tell him that you can't love someone or something that's not human, and he just wasn't really getting the message. He didn't believe her, and he rejected that sentiment at large. And then the song, what leads up to the song, is sort of him getting over his love for the mechanical doll, and Niklaus is saying, you know, look at all that you have to look forward to, you know, put that behind you, let's move on, like it's a beautiful night, you have all of this life to take in.
Right. And then summons Giulietta to, you know, be a part of that, that maybe Hoffmann would then fall in love with her. Great. Also, just one little detail, is Niklaus a man or a woman in the opera?
He's a boy. It's a boy playing a woman.
Right. So you know it's a pants role, right?
Right.
But you would be singing, which role would you be singing? Are you soprano or mezzo?
I'm soprano, so I'd be singing the role of Giulietta.
Right. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to double check before we got too far down the bike. Awesome. So great. So that's certainly going to help you with your interpretation. And I felt like you were very much into what you were singing. I thought it was a beautiful performance in that. You probably could be a little bit more specific with some of the things you do, but I'm sure it's not every day that you sing into your iPhone. So we're all learning how to do that. Second, I just want to address the language. I had a really wonderful native speaking French diction coach who also happened to be a singer. So she was able to help a lot with the language, and I think overall your French is pretty good. There are specific vowels in French that just give us a hard time sometimes as singers. That letter U, which is really pronounced U, it's you really keep your lips very tight, and it's almost like you're saying E, but you wrap your lips around it. So I could say like plus needs to have a little bit more of that. Nuit, also a little bit more of that. And then the other vowel that I felt that gave you away as a non-French speaking native is amour. Amour. It's very much a very close amour. So it's again that concept that it's their vowels are just a little bit tighter. So I thought that those two stuck out specifically to me as I was listening. And the other one that's a little bit tricky is loin. It's one of those nasalized vowels, you know. I had a great diction coach one time, one of my professors at Pepperdine, Dr. Henry Price. He gave us the 4 nasalized vowels. He gave us a trick, and it's un, bon, vin, blanc, a good white wine. Bon, vin, blanc. So that's a good way to remember how those are pronounced, and also that they are very specific to French. And along my path, I would always have really great coaches who were American and maybe had studied abroad, who very much had the language in their ear. But I found that if I could just get with a native speaker, and even online today, you know, you go to Google Translate and you press the button and have them pronounce a word, it's usually by a native speaker, so it's just helpful. And because we're all oral people, as musicians, I know you'll soak that right up really easily. The third thing that I wanted to address is a couple technical things. I, as a young singer, I actually started singing at age 8. In private voice lessons, right before I turned 9. And I will actually confess that I didn't really truly have a handle on my technique until after I graduated with 2 degrees in music and was already on the apprentice circuit. Finally, and I met my teacher that I've been studying with for the last probably 15, 20 years. It was then that it sort of unlocked, which is not to say that I didn't have fantastic teachers my whole life. They were all amazing. But it wasn't until then that I sort of had to put some pieces together. And one of those things was breath. Now, every singer and every teacher of singing is going to have a slightly different way to explain it. But I think we're all getting to the same goal, which is that breath support is the foundation on which your singing exists. And so I noticed a couple times there were a few phrases that were a little bit difficult to get through, which is completely normal because at your age of singing and learning what you're learning, you're still learning how that works out. And plus we are constantly growing. Our physical bodies are growing for a long time. So, and we'll always be growing and we'll always be figuring that out. So I want to talk about your breath support and how you get to it, and want to sing a couple phrases, and also your mouth position, because those two actually go together for me. So the first thing I wanted to ask is, what do you think about breath and when you think about breathing?
I would say that I struggle the most with breath support in terms of my emotions. So if I'm tense, then it's like they go hand in hand. And if I'm thinking about one technical aspect, it's usually at the sacrifice of my breath support, especially up in my higher range, where I'm like thinking, oh boy, like I gotta get up there.
Right.
So then, and that's unfortunate because those are the really important times.
Yeah.
Are you also asking how I think of breath in terms of how I envision it and how I
yeah. And how do you take a breath to support your singing?
I think especially in my when I was younger, I would take very shallow breaths for a really long time, and I have only been recently trying to think, with the help of my awesome teachers, have been trying to think of breath and taking in a breath as like a low, deep-rooted thing, which is new to me, but when it has worked out, it has made a world of a difference. So
good. Yes, it sounds like you're getting good direction then. I want to share a couple of things that were huge epiphanies for me when it came to breath, and I want to try them with you right now. I was sitting behind an amazing singer one day in a first musical rehearsal, and I watched her back expand like this, and my eyes must have widened as much as her back expanded, because I thought how you're supposed to breathe, because I never considered using, this part of my body as, I always thought, I'm breathing from my diaphragm, or I'm that low pelvic floor breath. I'm trying to get into that. But I want to encourage you to think of your whole trunk from your shoulders to your hips as this big, barrel. And you are going to expand that barrel by kind of like an accordion as you take that breath in. All those intercostal muscles between your ribs are going to expand that rib cage, and then you're going to use that and almost hold it out like a cage that it is as you're singing the phrase, and then only the very end you let it kind of come down. So try that for me. I'm gonna do a little bit of demonstrating. So what I want you to do is to feel, and if I were with you, I'd be putting my hands on your rib cage, but it's hard that we're all properly socially distanced, that I want you to feel that it's like right here.
Okay.
And then I want you to sing this phrase. Here we go. So this is le t'enfuis et sans retour. And actually just sing it on ah, because I know you'll have the French just fine, but this is really for a breath exercise. So I want you to expand this. Watch if you can see that it expands when I do it. Okay? And then you're going to let down just at the very end. So try it right here for me.
Okay. Let me know if the mic is too loud. Maybe I should put it a little farther away. So
yeah, let it hang down. That's great. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
What I enjoyed about that is that I felt like it was more of a consistent stream of sound, because you're riding that sound on the breath. So I want you to try it again. And as you take the breath in at the beginning, remember that you're filling up for the very end of the phrase as well. If you don't get to the end of the phrase, no harm, no foul. We're practicing here. So it's all about the process. And this is a very important part of the process. The other thing I want to ask you to do while you're doing it, because I don't want to run out of time in telling you this, is if you can release this right here. Good. And I want it to come out as an ah. Because sometimes I find that when in your performance, and you'll go back and look at this, it was a little horizontal. And I want you to think a little more vertically. And if you can feel like you've got two gumballs between your molars back there, that seems to help with that and leaves this column nice and open and tensionless. Okay?
Okay.
You take the breath. Very good. Okay, can you step back a little bit from your camera so I can see your rib cage and your...
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing the best shirt for this, but let me know. Is that better? I'm sorry that you don't see my face, but...
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to see how you're using your rib cage. So turn sideways for me without that earbud coming out. Good. Now put your hands on your rib cage and expand that out.
Okay.
And then do the same phrase again. Here's the note. Yes, very good. Okay, now, so did you feel like you had more breath to get to the end?
I did. I did indeed.
Awesome. So those are the things that I just it's really hard in a master class.
Of course, yeah.
But those are the tidbit things that I would want to address with you as you continue. Because really the most important thing of singing is the singing part. And there are so many things to think about. I feel as a singer, you're spinning so many plates because you're thinking about the high notes. But I want you instead, when you're thinking about those high notes, I'd really like for you to think about being grounded in your breath. And that the breath is what actually makes those high notes happen. It's not us thinking about the high notes and even lifting up to those high notes. You're actually grounding down into your breath so that those high notes come as an extension of what is of the breath. A lot of times we are so concerned with the end result, the sound that we're making, that we forget that it's really important to think through the process. And that's something I learned while taking Alexander Technique lessons, because Alexander Technique was very much about observing your process and observing your actions so that you could then refine them every time you tried to sing or speak, so that they could be just that much better. There's no perfection in this game. There's only excellence. So we're trying to be as excellent as we can. So I would love for you to continue down that road with your teacher. You're obviously getting good, training, because it's not the shallow breath, it's the deep breath, but it's also that expanded breath that's going to get you through. And think about that as the basis and the foundation for how you're going to make all of the sound, the low notes and the high notes, and especially the high notes. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
absolutely. You have such a beautiful voice, and I'm so excited to see where you go.
Thank you so much. I thoroughly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Christopher.
Okay, thank you so much, Holly. Really, really great work there. And of course, thank you, Jessica. Our next singer is Kariana Mazzili. Kariana, are you with us?
I am here. Hello.
Okay, great. So I'm going to share my screen here for your performance.
Great.
Morning skies are all glow while the lilac trees blow, and I breathe of the fresh morning wind by the shadowy pool where it's dewy and cool. I must see if my fortune I'll find. Out of luck this winter, yet it's everyone's goal, and my home lies out there in the dell, hidden there all around. Clustered lilacs are found, and my own little fortune as well.
Beautiful. Kariana, where are you on my screen? There you are. Okay. So nice to meet you. And thank you for that beautiful beautiful interpretation of the Lilacs. That's one of my favorite songs. I've never ever actually sung it, but I love hearing it. So when I saw that was on the list, I thought, oh, this is so good. So the things that I would like to work with you on as far as this song is concerned is the idea of phrasing and how we go about that when we're interpreting a song. Can you speak the words to me in English as if you were saying a poem? Saying it as a poem? Yeah. Or start with the first couple phrases.
Morning skies are aglow while the lilac trees blow, and I breathe of the fresh morning wind. By the shadowy pool where it's dewy and cool, I must see if my fortune I'll find. And then that interlude there. Ah, of luck is scant dole, yet it's everyone's goal. and my own lies out there in the dell. Hidden there all around, clustered lilacs are found, and my own little fortune as well.
Beautiful. Great. Okay, so as you're going about speaking and thinking about this particular text, as the composer writes it, he chooses little phrases and sets them to little melodies within the larger phrase. I would like to hear, as you sing it, that there's actually a through line of your thought. Does that make sense? When I'm saying something, I sometimes will take a break to think about what it is I'm going to say next, like just then. But I would like to, in honoring the poetry, hear a little bit more of a phrase in between the thoughts so that we get a sense of the overall phrase. So here we go. I'm going to play your first. So I would like to hear those three little sections, and they're written, they have rest between them, most likely to help the singer breathe, right? But I would like to hear them as one big phrase in your mind. So can you think of it that way when you sing it? Okay, great. So I'm gonna have you, I'm just gonna count, Molly is my pianist, so as she is yours. So you don't want to hear me play the piano. Although I've seen a lot of great videos lately of beautiful singers accompanying themselves, and I thought, oh, I should have kept up with that. So I'll count 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
I will glow while the lilac trees blow.
Nice. Yes. That to me gave me a much more thoughtful interpretation of how it's all connected. And then as you do the next phrase and you take it up and down, you're going to connect that to the beginning. But let's try that second phrase first. And again, I want to address breath because I feel like as young singers, we're still figuring that out. It's just part of the game. And I think you do such a beautiful job at it. But there are a couple times where I did also feel that maybe I would say you could, gird your loins a little more. You take that deeper, more profound breath using all of your trunk. Were you able to see what we talked about with Holly and how demonstrated with that? Okay, so then you know what I'm talking about. So I want you to try that kind of a breath while you're singing. Okay, can you do that? I'm not going to play at the same time because if I play, then I can't hear you because of the way this is set up. So just go ahead and start when you feel ready after you've taken a good breath on this phrase. Okay, go ahead.
And I breathe of the fresh morning wind.
Good. Okay, now let's try that again, doing the same thing that we did with Holly. Just try and put your hands there on your rib cage and feel it expanding. Take a couple of breaths before you even get to singing the phrase that help you get an idea of what it feels like to expand that. Can you try that for me? Go ahead. Breathe all the way out and then breathe all the way in as much as you can into that rib cage and expand it like it's a balloon that's being blown up. Okay.
Should I turn to the side or?
Sure, that would be great. Actually, if you turn all the way around, then I can see your back. And then you can put your hands there.
Like this?
Yeah, a little bit higher. There you go. There you go. That's a nice expansion. Very good. Now go ahead and sing the phrase. Here's your first note. Okay, take a nice breath like that. Again, yep.
And I breathe of the fresh morning wind.
Good. That felt to me like the much more consistent flow of the sound. Now, another thing that I want to address, and what I sort of talked about with Holly too, is that a lot of times singers think that they have to do a lot between their cheekbones and their clavicles, that they have to articulate a lot, which is true because you want people to understand the words, but they start using things that don't necessarily need to be used, like tension in the jaw or extra tension in your tongue or extra tension in your neck muscles. And so what I would like you to try to do this time is to create that vertical space by feeling like you've got, two gumballs between your molars, and relax your jaw and get a more vertical position on it. And when you do that and you take a breath that lowers, you can actually feel your larynx descending. Like if I put my hand right here, you can see, I don't know if you can see this, but you can see how my larynx actually descends when I inhale. And I'm not trying to press it down. I'm just trying to open my throat a little bit more so that basically what I'm creating is this beautiful column for all that breath to come through. Pull those beautiful chords together and make them resonate so that, or make them vibrate so that it can come out through your resonators as uninhibited as possible. No tension in your jaw, no tension in your tongue, no tension in the muscles in your neck, okay? So I want you to try that and tell me what it feels like. This is your starting note again, so put your hands on your rib cage, take that nice big breath.
From that second phrase, correct?
Correct, that nice big breath that you did the first time. Here's your note. Take the breath and then feel all this elongated, nice and vertical, and sing the phrase.
And I dream of the fresh morning wind.
Beautiful. Great. Can you try to vibrate every note with your breath? Can you try that for me?
And I breathe of the fresh morning wind.
Good. Yes. I definitely felt as you were going up there were some great vibration. Now, when we have vibration in the sound, it means that there's no tension in there. So the goal is to have as much vibration in the tone as possible, as much energy that can be put into the sound as possible, so that we know that that larynx is low, it's not creeping up on us, but the muscles are nice and relaxed. And the way we support that best is by taking that good deep breath. So try it one more time. Because that was great. I just want you to go just that much further, because you're making such great strides that we should just take you all the way.
Why not?
Why not?
And I breathe of the fresh morning wind.
Good. Now, when you think of the phrase, can you breathe for the end of the phrase at the beginning? Do you know what I mean by that? I mean that I'm going to be thinking, okay, if this phrase is going to be 2 measures long, basically give or take a beat, I want to make sure that I have enough for the end. But I'm not going to hold anything in here because I'm afraid I'm not going to make it to the end. I'm just going to rely on the breath to do the work. So I need to take a good, solid, full, expanded breath so I can do that. And that it creates a nice phrase versus, each note at a time. Does that make sense? Good. Can you try it for me? Here's your note.
And I breathe of the fresh morning wind.
Beautiful. Now, can you try it? I'm going to ask you to do one more thing because you know singers, we're just doing this the whole time. One more thing. I want you to relax your jaw right here, and I want you to sing, and I breathe of the fresh morning wind. Wind. Do you hear the difference between wind and wind? Okay, I'm giving that breath the space to go somewhere where it wants to go, and I'm getting out of its way. Try it again.
And I breathe of the fresh morning wind.
Good, good. Okay. Last time I'm going to ask you to do this phrase because you're probably like, what is this lady trying to do? I want you to send the sound out from the deepest point in your trunk that you can find and just send it out as this big, beautiful column of sound. Okay? As if you were trying to communicate, although, as if you're trying to communicate 3 apartments over from where you are, 3 houses over from where you are. Okay? Try that.
And I breathe of the fresh morning wind.
That was gorgeous.
Thank you.
Can you tell me about what you're thinking and what you're feeling as we're going through this process? Have you had any observations?
Well, towards the end, just what you had said about finding the lowest point in my trunk, as like I hit that last note, that last word, I just felt my stomach even expand more as I focused on just finding that lower point.
Right. Good. Very good. That is so, like I said with Holly, all teachers and all singers have a different way of expressing how the breath works. Some people talk about the diaphragm, some people talk about the pelvic floor. I often talk about this expansion of the rib cage because that was something I never learned in all the years that I had really studied until I saw it in action in another singer. And then I started doing some Alexander technique and then really and that for me was the biggest epiphany for my breath support. So we all talk about it in different ways, but that's why I always ask students or other singers, what does it feel like to you? Because generally it's the same thing. And the definition in the breath book is you need good breath support in the singing, but how that works for each individual singer is the singer's responsibility to figure out. And sometimes that is so hard, but you just proved to us that you are figuring it out for yourself and creating a beautiful phrase that rides on the breath. Okay, we have just about a minute and a half left. So I want you to try and do that with this last phrase too. So, okay, so what you've been doing with the breath, can you try it on that phrase where you're singing clustered lilacs are found, okay? This is your starting note. Start whenever you feel ready, but make sure you put your hands on your rib cage and take that good breath and feel that low, low breath as well. It's expanding like a big old yoga ball.
Clustered lilacs are found at my own little fortune as well.
Good. Yes, good. Now, what would you do? What would you do to execute that phrase with more breath? What would you tell yourself? I might try to do this way or that way. What would you say to yourself?
Probably what I did in the process of that first phrase that we were working on, just like thinking about it getting lower, finding that lower point.
Great.
So it's like you said, a lot of the time we're spinning a bunch of plates. So it's like, as I'm thinking about that, I'm also going, but wait, do I have enough breath? And like, oh, here it comes. And, so many different things.
Right. And if you run out of breath, no harm, no foul. I want you to just continue to try this. So try it again. Do that phrase again.
Lost and lilacs are found, and my own little fortune is well.
Great. Try from clustered lilacs are found again, and use that deep breath that you would tell yourself to use to do it again.
Lost and lilacs are found, and my own little fortune is well.
Well, there's the proof in the pudding. If you tell yourself that that's where you need to breathe from, you actually get through the phrase, and it sounds like a nice, consistently supported sound. So that is, I think that's going to be a huge thing for you, and I'd love for you to continue to explore that as you go on your vocal journey, because the more we think about that, and the more we lock into how the support works for us in our own individual bodies and how it makes sense here, but it also feels inside, is the most important part of the breath support. So good for you for figuring that out and knowing the language that you need to tell yourself to make that happen. Awesome work.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
All right, excellent, wonderful, lovely work, Kariana. I have to say, as we're going along here, it's so lovely to hear your voices continue to open up. So congratulations, everyone. All right, our next singer is Shane Siniza. Shane, are you with us?
Hello.
Hello. Okay, I'm going to share the screen for your performance.
Che fiero costume d'Aldigero, nume che a forza di pene si faccia adorar, che a forza di pene si faccia adorar. E pur nell'ardore il dio traditore, un vago sembiante mi fe idolatrar. Un vago sembiante mi fe idolatrar. Che fiero costume d'Aldigero, nume che a forza di pene si faccia adorar, che a forza di pene si faccia adorar. Che crudo destino che un cieco bambino con bocca di latte si faccia stimar, con bocca di latte si faccia stimar. Ma questo tiranno con barbaro inganno entrano per gli occhi mi fe sospirar. Entrano per gli occhi mi fe sospirar. Che crudo destino che un cieco bambino con bocca di latte si faccia stimar, con bocca di latte si faccia stimar.
Great, Shane, that was lovely. Good. You look like you had a great time performing that, and all the struggle that goes on inside of Cupid, why is he doing this to me? So it seems like you understand pretty well what it is that you are communicating, and your intention for doing that. There are just a couple things that I hear from a language stance that I want to bring to your attention. It's usually the doubles, and because this song was also new to me, I know it's in that 24 Italian songbook, but which I love that book. I actually never really sang any songs out of it until long after I was out of school and was putting together an Italian program. But I did study Italian in college because that's, of course, the language of opera, and was so important. So I lived over in Florence for a summer and studied a lot of Italian and worked with a lot of native speakers who would help me understand. And one of the things they would always get me, and this is one of the things that I'm going to pass on to you, because it's really hard for us as, native English speakers to grasp onto those things that make other languages specific and special to their language. And so one of those things is the double consonants. Like bocca and latte and faccia. Faccia is a little bit easier. Tiranno, inganno. And it's hard to sing it when it's moving by quickly and it's, and to get it in there. But it always gives us away as not being native Italian speakers if it's not present. Okay. And I listened to several videos of this song because I wanted to get more familiar with it. And really not one performance that I heard of it was true to what a native would do. So all that to say, you're not alone. But I would love for you to work a little bit more diligently at that. It is something that we just have to work a little harder at because it's not natural to us. We didn't grow up, saying inganno, or tiranno with those double N's, and bocca, and really making that little itty bitty space between those double consonants. So I'd like for you to actually try a couple of those lines so that we can work a little bit on that. And then I'd also like to do sort of like what I was doing with the other singers, get you to really, I feel like you have a good understanding of your breath and you have a good foundation. It flows very easily out of you, and you've got a lot of freedom going on in here too, which is really, really lovely, because that's, I think, one of the hardest parts. So we'll work on that in a bit, but I want to work on these double consonants. So, che crudo destino che un cieco bambino con bocca di latte si faccia stimar. Okay? I want to hear all those doubles in there. So here is the beginning note. Is that right? I think so.
I think it's supposed to be a G. I think that might be a typo.
I'm sorry.
I think that might be a G.
G. I'm on page 96. Is that where you are?
I think it's a typo. It's okay.
Oh, got it. You're absolutely right. So G to E flat, yes. Che crudo destino. Okay, when you're ready.
Che crudo destino che un cieco bambino con bocca di latte si faccia stimar.
A little bit more. I want a little bit more. Che crudo destino che un cieco bambino con bocca di latte si faccia stimar. Just see how I'm putting those just a little? And I don't want to disrupt the rhythm that he's written, but you have to slightly do it because of the language. Bocca di latte. Sorry, I'm singing you the wrong notes. Con bocca di latte si faccia stimar. Bocca di latte si... No, I still can't sing the right one. Bocca di latte si faccia stimar. bocca di latte si faccia stimar. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, try that for me, just on bocca.
Bocca di latte si faccia stimar.
Say bocca, bocca.
Bocca.
Yeah, a little bit more separation in there.
Bocca di latte si faccia.
Yes, that's it. Very good. Yeah, do it again. Just speak it because that's where you start, right?
Bocca di latte si faccia stimar.
Yeah, give me more latte, latte.
Bocca di latte si faccia stimar.
Beautiful. That's where you start. And then put it into the music.
Bocca di latte si faccia stimar.
There you go. Yes, yes. That's what it is. And you say it again another time. And then, okay, so the other phrase is, ma questa ranno. Give it a good double N. Ranno. Can you try that?
Ma questo tiranno.
Good. Con barbaro inganno. Oh, sorry.
Con barbaro inganno.
Good. Yes. Now, can you do that whole phrase and give me lots of double N's there?
Ma questo tiranno con barbaro inganno entrano per io.
There you go. Yeah, and the other one is gnocchi. Gnocchi. It's like gnocchi that you eat, except these are eyes. Gnocchi, you don't want to eat those. Well, I guess you do in certain cuisine, but gnocchi. So sing that whole phrase, and when you get to gnocchi, I want to hear a good double C consonant. Here you go.
Ma questo tiranno con barbaro inganno entrano per gli occhi. Oh, sorry. That again.
It's okay. Good. I'm glad you're doing it again because I need a little more of that separation in the end.
Ma questo tiranno con barbaro inganno entrano per gli occhi mi fe sospirar.
Yucky. Don't be afraid to just even stop it just a little bit. You're singing such beautiful phrases that I hate to even tell you this because, so much of singing is trying to get good phrases. But in Italian, they make bel canto is beautiful phrases with the consonants. So keep your beautiful phrases. If I don't want to interrupt that at all, but I still need you to have your double consonants. So one more time. Ma questo tiranno.
Ma questo tiranno con barbaro inganno entrano per gli occhi mi fe sospirare. Sorry.
You caught yourself. Okay, one more time.
Ma questo tiranno con barbaro inganno entrano per gli occhi mi fe sospirare.
Hey, your gnocchi was beautiful. I still could have used a little bit more on the on the nose. Yeah. I was reading my texting. That yes, Christopher confirmed that yes, that is a misprint. So thank you. Sorry, I had that not right. I gotta get all my stuff going on here. Okay, here we go. I want speaker view because I had you in gallery for a second. Okay, so excellent work. So I want to start. Maybe we'll just start at the very beginning. And you have and really dig in, as we were talking about earlier with the ladies, into your breath. And because I feel like I had several singers say this to me once before, and now I understand what they mean, teachers I should say, but there is more sound that you are capable of. And the way you access that is letting your breath do the work, and getting out of the way. Kind of like I was saying to Kariana, that this stuff kind of wants to get in the way sometimes. And we're thinking about so many things as singers that we forget to really always breathe or really rely on that breath. You know, even after doing this for, I don't know how many years I've been doing it, probably almost 30, that that you just feel like you could always use it, lean on your breath just a little bit more. So I want you to really sing this from, you know, if you can think of yourself as you are, feel your feet on the ground, right? I feel like you are very much in touch with your body, and that's really great. So get your feet rooted into the ground, and then I want you to feel like your sound is coming from below the ground. And because that's kind of where I feel like for us to sometimes understand the depth of the breath that we have to take, we have to go beyond where we are to breathe, right? So if you can visualize that your feet are rooted into the ground and your body is this incredible trunk of a tree, and that you are this massive redwood tree, that you're not just a little maple like I just planted last year in my yard, that's a seedling, but you have grown in size and stature over all these hundreds of years to make you nice and sturdy as a tree, right? And your deep, deep roots into the ground, that you then breathe from that space, and you breathe from that very deeply rooted space. And as you take that breath and then you allow it to move up your trunk, and you're still going to remain as wide as that trunk, even as you're exhaling, okay? And then the sound comes as the gorgeous branches are blossoming. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, singing is very visual. So it's a lot of times I try to give a lot of visual concepts of how to think about we're producing the sound, and really get you to focus on the process of the breath versus the end result of the sound.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so start at the beginning. Okay? And think about how you're going to take that breath when you take it.
È fiero costume dall'Isero, nume che a forza di pene si faccia adorar.
Great. Stop right there. Now tell me what you thought about when you were preparing your breath.
I thought of that, the fact that I'm trying to access breath from underneath my feet,
Great.
somewhere here.
Yeah. And how did that inform your sound?
It had more depth. As you say, I felt like I had more low voice in there.
Yes, good. Yeah, more robustness and sound. Right. Because you're using all the resonating cavities that you have to actually make that sound. So I want you to do it on law, and I want you to make, just because we're experimenting, because that's what we get to do and it's so fun. I want you to take the words out of it, and I want you to do the phrase on awe, and I want you to feel like you are going to use that depth of breath, and then you're also going to use the height. It's kind of like an elevator that's stretching both directions at the same time. It's like the haunted house elevator at Disneyland, where I grew up. That you're going both directions at the same time. So it's like this. All right, I'm going to move you back here so that I can do a little demonstration here. See my little. You are going to be nice and rooted into the ground, but that the sound just comes out like a mushroom cloud. Do you know what the mushroom cloud looks like? The atomic bomb, that then it was like this, it's still this enormous of cloud, but then that cloud has this incredible blossom on it that happens. So I want you to feel that way about the sound. Here's your number. And just sing it on awe, and sing it as wide and as broad as you possibly can. Beautiful. Excellent. Excellent. That's so great. How did that feel?
Felt better. It did.
Yes. And so now when we add the words back in, because usually using our articulators creates some sort of like wrench in the system, I want you to think that you're going to sing those all vertical as well, which is easy to do in Italian because, except those double consonants, because that's the way that language is built, right? So try it again.
Che fiero costume dall'Isero, nume che a forza di pene si faccia adorar.
Beautiful. Do that once more and think of yourself again as that massive tree. Because I feel like you could think that your breath goes a little bit wider than just you. I mean, literally feel like you've got like this extra 3D space around you. Okay, one more time. Take a good breath.
Che fiero costume dall'Isero, nume che a forza di pene si faccia adorar.
Nice, beautiful, so beautiful. Okay, let's make sure that, oh yeah, we said I had 2 minutes left, and how many minutes ago was that? How much time do I have left, Christopher? Is it down to 1 minute? 1:30, thank you. So great. I want to get one of those phrases at the end that are kind of ba 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 ba, so that you can try it doing that too. Okay, so I want you to think that as a nice linear line. I don't want you to think it as all these notes that are bopping around like little stars in the sky. I still want it to be informed with that huge feeling of sound, okay? So try it from here.
Ma questo tiranno con barbaro inganno entrano per gli occhi mi fe sospirar.
Good. Don't worry about the sing. Don't worry about that part. In fact, sing it on ah for me. Sing it on ah. But think of it as that other sound that you were just making, where you're feeling like. Nice. Do you feel how you really had to press into your breath to connect that? Right? Amazing. Okay, it's time, so I have to say goodbye, but you're going to continue to work on that because you just, I don't know if you realized it, but you just had a breath support epiphany. So congratulations. That's awesome. Beautiful job. And I can't wait to hear more in the future. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you so much, Shane. Again, wonderful work. This has been really exciting. We decided at the beginning of our time together, before we officially started the masterclass, that Jessica is gracious enough to allow us a few minutes for some questions and answers. So is anybody watching or any of the participants have anything they'd like to ask?
Okay, nice to meet you, and thank you for this opportunity. You mentioned your rib cage expanding, and I have heard of that technique from when I was in high school. And they did have like an exercise where we would try to hold our ribs, like you said, and lean forward in a way so you can feel your ribs open up. But when I try to put that into practice, even like when I'm sitting here and like sitting straight up, I kind of feel like either I'm hunching over to try to feel my ribs open up, or it seems like I'm breathing like I'm like using my chest to breathe upwards instead of like being grounded. So how would you, like, what would you say your body goes through when you're trying, like, other than your ribs opening, like your posture and stuff like that?
Yeah, great question. Great question. Sometimes when I first discovered it on my own, I was actually leaning over. I was in because I had seen it in this wonderful soprano who was, she was singing a Wagnerian role. And so of course, that takes all the breath in the world, but her body was just like expanding. And I thought, that's amazing. But I didn't experience it myself really until I was in Alexander Technique session with a teacher, Alexander Technique teacher, and she had me leaning over. Let's see if I can move this back so you can see. So in that, you feel like you have this, they tell you that you're hanging from a string, right? and that your feet are apart and that your joints are all quite loose, and they have you bend at your hips, really at your hip joints like that.
Right.
And then I was actually bent over in that position when she had her hands on my back, and I was just singing like, oh. And as I was singing that, I felt the expansion in my back in a way that I had never felt it before, and it reminded me of what I had seen. So I was actually able to feel it in practice that way. So I would encourage you to try and do that, like bending at your hips, so that your back does sort of naturally expand, so you can try and see how that feels. And as far as the expansion in the front, there is a general expansion that happens in your rib cage, but we don't want it to be this over. I think it was Holly was talking about the shallow breath that happens. There will be a general expansion in the front, because as your rib cage expands, the whole thing breathes out and in. It's very much like an accordion that's getting expanded and then it stays out. And there's a little bit of pressure that happens as you're letting it out. And that's sort of like the holdout feeling that I feel. And then it comes down all the way at the end, because then the pressure lets off. So I would try those two things and see if you can do them to any success, that you feel like it works for you. Like I said, I was in my, probably mid to late 20s when I finally figured out how it all worked together. And I was getting great instruction the entire time, but it's just like, sometimes that light bulb takes a while for the light bulb to go off, and then you're like, oh, that's what they were saying. It's just, and if anybody makes you feel bad that you don't get it right away, just say, thanks so much for your opinion, and turn around and walk away.
Thank you.
We're all in process, and if anybody thinks that that happens overnight, they obviously don't know a whole lot about life. We're all in process, and even at this age, I'm still learning things, and I hope to always be learning things. Nobody knows everything, and it's okay to fail. That's how you discover how it works. Great question. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Carl.
You said near the beginning, you said, and I wrote it down, there's no perfection in this game, only excellence.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, did you make that up, or are you quoting someone?
It's not a direct quote per se. That's my version of it. I was actually sitting in on a master class of Christopher Parkening, the very wonderful guitarist. And he was talking about, he had just recently joined the music faculty at Pepperdine University, which is my alma mater for my bachelor's degree. And he was talking about how, our goal is not perfection, because that's impossible. Nobody is perfect, and nobody will ever be perfect. And as a recovering perfectionist, it sort of ministered to me, because I thought, I can remember the one time it was perfect, when I got straight A's in 6th grade in Mrs. Hickman's class, and it was perfect. But it wasn't, because perfection is just not really, none of us is perfect. Divine perfection, that's a whole nother. But for us, and from my personal beliefs, we are made in that image. But I also believe that that's the difference between us, is that we're like not perfect. So I think that it's important for us to strive for excellence, because that is, it's much more attainable. Maybe because it's subjective in a way, but I often think about how I am an artist. We are all artists. We all have gifts that we have been given to share. And when we share those gifts, there might be somebody who needs to receive it, who it's really destined for, and then there's somebody else who's like, that was okay, you know. But it's kind of like me going to the museum. I love French Impressionism. The day I discovered the L'Orangerie in Paris and sat there in front of those water lilies by Monet, I mean, I could sit there for the rest of my life. It was one of the most life-altering experiences for me. I have an aunt who's a docent at the Getty in Los Angeles, and she loves Greek antiquities. I'm like, hey, let's go to the Getty, and I'll meet you at the cafe at lunchtime, because I'm like, I do not want to walk through those Greek antiquities. Just no, thank you. Does it make the Greek antiquities any less valuable or worthy and their part in history? Absolutely not. It just happens to be my preference, you know, to go check out the French Impressionism. So I think we have to understand that just because somebody else has an opinion on what we do, that does not affect our worth as an artist and our value as an artist and a human being. I actually wrote down something to share with you all the other day because it was something so profound. It said, if pleasing people is your goal, you will be enslaved to them. People can be harsh taskmasters, and when you give them this power over you. And I just thought, wow, because I feel like the best day of my life in my career was the day that I really stopped giving so much weight to other people's opinions and really started pressing into who I am as an artist and what I had to say. And that was a really profound moment for me. And that's when I decided that it was not a compromise at being excellent. I always wanted to be excellent, but I didn't have to worry about how other people would perceive that excellence.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jessica, can you just kind of tell us about some of your performing experiences? What has been some of your high points and exciting moments? Share that with us.
Yeah, I can give you a few. I think one of my most favorite moments, it's probably one of the first moments, is when I decided at age 8, when we were on family vacation, to sing for my great grandmother who lived in a Presbyterian home in Towson, Maryland, because I think that was a performance that just came from my heart. I just wanted to sing for people. And I feel like I've come full circle in that experience, because then once I started voice lessons on the recommendation of one of the ladies who lived in that home, who had been an elementary school music teacher, she told my grandparents, you might want to have some voice lessons for your granddaughter because you may have a prima donna on your hands. And of course, none of us knew how prophetic that statement was at the time. But I think that it was one of the freest moments, a moment that I didn't judge myself, a moment that I didn't care if other people were judging me. I just wanted to sing. Another very profound moment was the weekend that I had to go on as a cover in the Los Angeles Opera production of The Marriage of Figaro. I was in the chorus and I was understudying the role of Susanna, and I was actually on my way to a voice lesson. And I got a call from the opera house and they said, we need you here as soon as possible. The woman that you're covering is on a plane to Spain right now. Her mother passed away yesterday and she needs to go home for the funeral. And I said, okay. So I called my voice teacher and I'm like, I gotta go. I'm not coming to my lesson. And so within an hour's time, I was put into a costume, put on the stage for the Act 3 and 4 piano dress rehearsal. The next day was the entire orchestra dress rehearsal, all 4 acts. And then the next day was the piano, the orchestral open dress rehearsal. And there were probably about, 1,000 people there, maybe 2,000 people there. 30 of them were my people because I asked for a lot of tickets. I'm like, if I'm going on, I want people to see this. It was just a very special moment because I realized that it was a life changer. 2 days later, I had an invitation from Placido Domingo, who ran the company at that time, to be a young artist or a resident artist with the company. And that was on the recommendation of Edgar Beitzel, who was the man in, his second in command, who was there for the performance. And he was like, I can't believe what I just witnessed. And I was like, I can't believe what I just did. But it was truly Richard Bernstein, who performs a lot at the Metropolitan Opera, who I'm sure some of you know. He was my Figaro, and he was incredibly encouraging. And he said to me, how you feeling? Do you know all your lines? Do you know what you're saying? He said, you're just going to go out there and have a good time, right? Because I know all your lines, and besides, who's really in control, meaning God. And I was like, yes, I do. So I have great faith in that. So I'm just going to go out and have a ball. And I did. And I got to the point where I went up on one line. I finally got to the end of the opera, and I was singing De Vieni, and I sang, Giunse il fine il momento. Giunse il fine il momento. Because I couldn't remember. And that's the thing I had known since I was 14 years old. So I'm like, why am I going up on that? But I think it was just the release, about all the repertoire I had in my head that I had put in there in the previous months. So, but that was a ball, because that opened the door for so many wonderful things that have happened to this point. And Molly was a part of one of those when we were doing the premiere of Flowering Tree. That's how I met Molly. She was the repetiteur, which is not her normal gig, but she's like, hey, let's think outside of the box. And we got to meet during those rehearsals, and have been dear friends ever since. So, I think life is a lot about thinking outside the box, even though I feel like in this business, everybody wants to put you in a box because they want to be able to cast you and put you in a specific place. But you got to figure out who you are and what makes you you, so that you can tell them who you are.
I have one more question. Will you, for those who are listening now, will you just kind of tell them if they're going to, how would you explain to them something that they're going to perform that's kind of different from their personal character, how they can identify with it, how they can find it so that they can make it their own, and I talk about think outside of the box, but expand their understanding, or
right.
What I'm trying to say.
A lot of times, great question, such a great question. A lot of times when you are performing things that maybe don't resonate with you personally, maybe it's a character that you're like, I don't want to play that kind of a person, which makes it hard. And you don't have any personal life experience that would help, that you could draw on to help you. That's when you have to really put on your creative hat. You have to realize that there are people who are like that in the world, good, bad, or indifferent, and figure out ways to make them accessible to other people, and accessible to you as an artist, so that you can find a way to sympathize with them, to understand them as a person, just like you would understand a friend or a colleague, and put yourself in their shoes. I had the funniest experience a couple of years ago. I was singing Musetta in 2017 at La Boheme, at the Cincinnati Opera, in La Boheme at the Cincinnati Opera, not far from my home. And my neighbor, who I attend church with, he went to the show, and he came up to me afterwards, and he's like, wow, I didn't ever expect to see you playing a part like that, because Musetta's kind of a tart. And my husband's the elder of the church, and it was just kind of so funny that I would be sort of outside the box there. But I just found the fun in her, and why she loves the way she loves, and how fiery she is, and how passionate she can be, and yet how she truly has a heart of gold, that she would sell one of the things that is so prized to her to buy what somebody really needed. And that I could resonate with, because I feel that way. I feel like it's important to serve other people. It's important to love other people. And so that part I locked into, but the other part where she's just like, hey, look at me, I'm so great. and stands in the middle and performs. I guess I might be like that too. I don't know. But I do like to perform. But
the part of you that you're hiding that comes out on stage.
Apparently, it was really well received. So
good.
I have a quick question, Jess, because I've spoken with several of these guys in class or in between classes. Many of them are thinking, I might want to do voice for a master's degree. I might, and they're really seriously playing around with it. And the question is, like, if you were in their shoes of that might, what needs to be done? What do they need to figure out? And I'm sure they've had this conversation with their 2 vocal teachers, but what would you tell them?
You know, I was watching a YouTube clip last night called Some Good News by John Krasinski. I don't know if any of you have seen this, but he had a graduation and he had graduation speakers. One of them was Oprah, and one of them was Steven Spielberg. And somebody was talking about having a dream and what do you do with your dream? And he said, you know, the dreams are something that you have that take hold of you, and you then live them out because they are so much a part of you that you really can't do anything else. And that really resonated with me because I felt like I had always dreamed about being a singer since I was very young, but I got through 2 degrees and felt like I still didn't know what was going on. And as an apprentice at Santa Fe Opera, I was 23, I think, and the youngest there. And I felt like I was no longer a big fish in a little pond. I was like a really small tadpole in this really great ocean of really good singers. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to make it, you know, and this is the only thing I ever wanted to do or felt like I could do or should do. And it really felt like I had to give it everything I had. And I think that when I talk to colleagues of mine who have, like Eric Owens and people who have made it in the business, it's because they really have a perseverance that allows them to keep going even when it gets really hard. Because the business is hard and there's no guarantee that you're going to make it. And even Richard said to me, you know, when I was interviewing him 25 years ago, how do you make in this business? He said, I don't consider myself the most talented singer in the business. I just want it more than anybody else does. And so I'm going to make it happen, you know, and as much as it's up to me, you know, and because there are a lot of really great singers who are like, I just don't know if I have what it takes to make it. You know, I have the perseverance to do it, because it does take a lot. And there were times that, man, I just, you know, didn't have $1 to my name. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. And my grandmother's like, it's okay. We'll give you money for your car insurance. It's okay. You know, and you're constantly relying on the people. And even when you do make it, it's like feast or famine kind of thing. There's like a few years there where like you make it in the big time, but then you have to keep that up. You know, it's like once you make it, you still have to work on it. I remember hearing Renee Fleming talk about that. You know, it's one thing making it to the top. It's another thing staying there and maintaining that excellence. So I would say, you know, it does take a lot of perseverance, and it takes a willingness to be broken. And Oprah in that same grad thing was talking about how she got a demotion, and that demotion was going from an anchor person to running a talk show. And look where she is now. You know, it's kind of amazing that you think that the thing that is your worst nightmare turns out to be your best blessing sometimes. So yeah, that's my encouragement.
Thanks, friend.
Well, this has been really inspirational and exciting to watch. I think we probably shouldn't take up too much more of your time.
I have a voice lesson to teach in a little bit, so I gotta go.
No. let's just leave it at that. And thank you so very much for all of your time and your guidance and coaching today. I know that it's been great for all of us to watch. So.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was great to work with all of you, and I'll see you on Monday.
Great. We look forward to this.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.